Okay, so this is take one of my teaching video. I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes and we'll see how much I get through, and hoping to see we can see how the lesson will look. So when I say go, that means I started the timer and I'm going to get into teacher mode. Okay, go. Good morning, class. Today we're going to do a couple reviews, but just for a few reminders, please make sure your phones are put off and the sign is on silence, and they are put away so you cannot see them. So we're going to do a little review. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to point at you, and that means I'm expecting for all of you to participate and give me the answer. So just a practice round, if I were to say 1 plus 1, 3, 2, 1, nice job. So let's do one more. Let's do 1 plus 2, 3, 2, 1. Nice, I think you're getting the hang of this. Let's do one more before we move on. Let's do 4 minus 3, 3, 2, 1. Nice job. So let's go ahead and move forward to what we're going to be digging into today. So take a look at the board. You can see I have a triangle here. It kind of represents a pyramid. My goal for all of us today is to go through two-step equations and looking at word problems and setting them up in a group model. Some of you may be in this area, the middle of the triangle, which means you might need some prompts from me, but you are able and capable of doing it on your own mostly. Or you could very well be up here to the top of the triangle, which means you don't need any supports whatsoever, which is okay, and that just means you're really getting the hang of this. So, as long as we are all on the triangle today before you leave, that means that you all have grasped what we have learned, and we are doing everything that we need to do to be successful in my room. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's review what this may look like. Let's see, make sure that's on the board all the way. We might have to zoom out here a little bit. So let's talk about this for a sec. If I were to ask you, what does this x mean? Turn to your neighbor and talk for a sec. Okay, so Savannah, what do you think this x might mean? Nice job. It is the variable. So I'm going to label that there. So then, if that means the variable, what might this 2 represent? Turn to your neighbor. Good job. It is the constant. And why might that be the constant? How come we're calling that 2 the constant, but the x a variable? Nice, because there is no variable with it. So if the 2 is a constant, what might the 5 be? Nice job. It is also a constant because there is no variable. So then what might that mean for this 3? It's not by itself. It's with the variable. As you can see, the x is right next to it. So what does this 3 mean? Turn to your partner. Okay, all eyes on me in 3, 2, 1. John, can you tell me what that 3 means? What did you and your partner talk about? It is the coefficient, but why? You are right, it's because it's with the variable. So then if we have the 3 with the variable and we're looking at the 3x, what might we call that? It is a term. And what does this term mean? What is it representing? By saying 3x, what are we saying? Nice job. It is 3 groups. Now, what kind of groups are they? Are they equal or different groups? You are right. It is of the same size. So 3 equal groups. Okay, so now that we reviewed what we've been working on previously, let's also take a look at what this might mean. Now this is a model, and we've worked on this model quite a bit. Can any of you remember what we call this model? Go ahead and turn to your partner and see if you can remember what this is. Sarah, what did you and your partner talk about? What do we think this is? Nice job. This is a group schema model, and this is what we use when we're looking at word problems and identifying the parts of the problem in order for us to find out what our equation is. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first problem to see if we can set up our schema model correctly. Get out of the way here so we can see. So let's go ahead and read this together. It says, Dan has to read 23 pages for homework tonight. Charlie has to read some pages for homework. And then together, Dan and Charlie have to read 45 pages for homework. How many pages does Charlie have to read? So let's take a look. Let's identify some of the things that we do know and that we can take from this and put it in our knowledge before we start setting up our model. So we know that looking at this, what's the first thing that they tell me? You're right. Dan has to read 23 pages. So we can mark that on there. What else does it tell us that we know, that we can take away from this? So Dan has to read 23 pages of homework. Does it tell us what Charlie has to read? It does not. So that is the unknown. It just says some pages of homework. Do we know altogether how much they have read or what they are reading for homework? Nice job. It tells us right here that Dan and Charlie have to read 45 pages of homework. So then it says how many pages does Charlie have to read, because again, that is the unknown because it says some pages. Okay, so we're going to set up our model. We're going to put the model back up here. We're going to flip this around. So knowing how we set this up, we know that the 2 bottom portions are going to be our smaller parts, and the big top box is what we have all together. It's overall, or combined total. So looking at our problem again, it says Dan has to read 23 pages of homework tonight. We're getting that from the top part. Where might we place that 23? Nice job. It's going to go in one of the small boxes because it's just a portion of how much they read together. So we can put 23, and we can even put in there Charlie because we know that's what Charlie is reading, just so we have an idea. Okay, so let's continue on. It says Charlie has to read some pages for homework too. So do you think that Charlie's is going to go in the top overall, or do you think it is a portion of how much they read altogether? Nice job. It is a portion because it's not how much they read altogether. That's just combining what he's reading as well. So, oh, excuse me, and I just looked at it. These are Dan's pages, not Charlie's. I got ahead of myself. So now we could put Charlie's here. Do we know how much Charlie is reading? We don't. So do we leave that blank, or do we put something in that spot? Nice job. We can place a variable in that spot because it is the unknown. We have no idea how many pages Charlie is reading. So what can we put in there? Exactly, you can put an X. You really can put any variable you want as long as you know that it's the unknown, and it makes sense to you because you know that it's going to be Charlie's unread books. So you can put a C for Charlie, you can put a B for books, you can put a P for pages, but I'm going to use X because that's just what I think of immediately when I use algebra. Okay, so let's continue reading. So that's the time up, which means that's probably about how far I'm going to get. Hopefully this helps.